On the 11th of September 2013, the European Commission proposed a shake-up of the telecommunications sector in the EU. Video streaming, Wi-Fi, instant messaging, 4G, roaming and other digital services are becoming more and more central to our daily lives, not to mention to the European economy. The EU's proposals could lead to big changes for both users and telecoms companies. So what would these changes mean for you? If adopted, the so-called Connected Continent plan would mean 1. No more roaming charges for calls to your mobile by July 2014, as well as incentives for mobile operators to offer you new Roam Like at Home bundles. 2. Telecoms companies offering services in more than one EU country, which could mean more competition and lower prices for consumers. The EU plans to do this by cutting red tape for companies operating across borders. It also wants better coordination of when and how companies bid for wireless spectrum from national governments, and, in turn, of how they provide that spectrum to you in the form of 4G and wireless broadband. 3. Safeguards to prevent internet companies blocking your access to certain data-heavy services like Skype or YouTube. And 4. Simpler and more transparent internet contracts that make it easier for you to switch providers. The European Commission claims that with better consumer protection, fewer differences between telecoms rules in different EU member states, and more opportunities for cross-border services, it can help bring about a single telecoms market. It is hoped that a single marketplace will create more competition, stimulate investment, and lead to improvements in Europe's telecoms infrastructure. Improvements are badly needed. 4G currently reaches only 26% of all Europeans, compared with over 90% of the population of the United States. Investment in telecoms infrastructure across Europe fell by €3.5 billion between 2008 and 2012, despite ever-increasing pressure on networks from new technologies. The Commissioner for the Digital Agenda, Neelie Kroes, now needs to convince European telecoms companies, regulators and citizens, as well as the European Parliament, that her proposals can reverse this trend. Some have already raised criticisms. BEREC, the organisation which represents national telecoms regulators, has raised concerns that the EU's plan could actually hinder competition and undermine the role of national regulatory authorities. Telecoms companies themselves have suggested that curbing their traditional sources of revenue, such as roaming, will only damage the sector further, and that forcing down the price of international calls will drive up national tariffs. Advocates for net neutrality, the principle that all data on the internet should be treated equally, highlighted positives and negatives. On the one hand, they have praised the EU's proposed safeguards on certain services being blocked by internet companies. But they warned that the door would instead be left open for companies to charge for carrying certain data-heavy services, like internet TV shows for example. This could ultimately lead to a two-speed internet, which means that you, the end user, would pay for certain parts of the internet and not for others. There is little doubt that Europe's fragmented telecoms market needs fine-tuning, or that improved investment, competition and infrastructure are urgently required. The best way to achieve these goals will be one of the key topics of debate in the lead-up to European elections in May 2014. Between now and then, the European Commission must ensure that it is on the same wavelength as telecoms companies, regulators and, most importantly, you, the user, in order for its proposals to be successful.